Hello, welcome to the UOWD podcast. My name is Michael Mallory. I'm joined today by John Green and the student Norin Asif. And if we'd like to start by John, maybe you can just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be delighted. So I'm the chairman of the global business of UOW around the world. We have campuses here in Dubai, in Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Australia, and soon to be in India, in Gujarat. So very excited. This is my first visit to University of Wollongong in Dubai, and I have to say that I'm over the moon about what I see here. This is an extraordinary campus with amazing, talented students and staff, professional staff, academic staff, and it's way beyond my expectations in terms of what I expected to find here. And one of the things that I love particularly, that I didn't appreciate, is what a melting pot of cultures that we have. People from all over the world, different cultures, different languages, all working together. It looks to me like a truly international university here in Dubai. So I'm really proud and pleased and privileged to be here, and I'm delighted. I haven't been chairman for very long, only since this is not even a year, and I would have come earlier, but my last visit got cancelled because I caught COVID, and it was probably better that I didn't come and infect everybody. So I stayed at home in Australia where I live. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we're also very lucky today to have one of our students. Norin is a Bachelor of Communication and Media student, but if you would be so kind as to introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Hello, my name is Norin Asif. I'm a second-year student studying visual communication and design. I've lived in Dubai for around 12 years now, and I'm so excited to be here and talk to you both.
12 years, wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
My name, as I said, is Michael Mallory. I'm the program director for the media programs here. I've only been here for 5 years, so Ren, you have some time on me and definitely some time on John.
I've been here for 4 days.
Yeah, I'm definitely the senior here then.
Yeah. John, you were saying that you have been sort of blown away by your time over the last 4 days. What are some things that have maybe stood out to you?
Well, I guess what the point I made before about the incredible diversity here, but also the spirit. Walking around this extraordinarily beautiful building, I didn't expect such a modern, buzzy building, and the vibe here is really good. Yesterday, for example, we had an orientation day, and we had future students and their parents here asking questions, trying to find out if this is where they want to be, and it was like a beehive of activity. And I got to talk to a few of the parents and the potential students, really enthusiastic. And I just think that was exciting. Sitting in on various things has been fun. The students launched their magazine, the Wallabies, and I had the pleasure and the privilege of being part of that launch, and the effort that has gone into that is extraordinary. The importance of having a student magazine, I think, is huge, and that is going to be a great thing, and the students are so enthusiastic. I'm also I write novels, thrillers, and we had an event where I spoke to the students about writing, and they asked me lots of questions in the library, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I was ecstatic. I was treated like a rock star, not a writer. And the theatre club put on a crime play for us, which was incredibly talented students. You would think almost professionals in terms of the acting ability. And then meeting so many of the staff here who are passionate about what they are doing and passionate about what UOWD does. And you know, I have this long love and passion for education, which comes about partly because my parents didn't go to school really. They were refugees into Australia with no English, no jobs, no money. And the one thing that they instilled in my sister and myself was the importance of education as the first rung of the ladder of opportunity. And so I've always had the belief that, you know, I've been quite successful only because I had a good education. So I've always been really strong about how important it is, even with young children, babies, etc. Literacy, numeracy are so important basic skills. Education is what, you know, we owe our children as parents, and the ripple effect, the benefit that people get from education has huge effects, not just for the individual, but for their families, for their communities. And I think, you know, what I see with University of Wollongong in Dubai is we do play an important role with the individuals, with the families, and the community around us in the UAE. So for me, that's really, really exciting, and I get that feeling that that is a strong thing here.
Very nice. And Ren, as a student here, why would you choose a place like this? I mean, what is it about this place that was right for you?
When I graduated high school, I had one of two plans: to either continue studying here or to move back to India. And coming from an immigrant family, going back to India is always a very easy, accessible option because, you know, you're in your homeland, things are so much easier, and we have all of our family back there. So it was really appealing to apply to one of the universities there and just like settle down. But what I wanted to do was to continue to study here, especially because the kind of degree that I was looking into and the kind of future that I envisioned for myself fit with the kind of media upbringing that was happening in Dubai right now. It's such a hot spot. And I was actually recommended Wollongong by one of my mom's cousins. And I toured the campus, and I thought it looked amazing. The lab was what actually sold me, because I wanted to do visual communication design, and it just looked like this hub for media. And I think I'd even seen the media room online, and I just thought like, oh, that looks so cool, I can't wait to work there. So that's what sold me compared to like the other universities, and it was just amazing. I liked it.
And have we met your expectations so far?
Yeah, definitely, because I didn't really come with any expectations.
Oh, well,
So
that's
that's
still
easy.
good though.
It's easy to cross them when you don't have anything to begin with.
And in addition to visual communication, Ren, I know you like to write a lot. And since John here is a published writer, for you first though, Ren, how do you see visual communication and your love and passion for writing coming together? Or do you see them coming together in the future?
I think the first thing that I guess what drew me to visual communication design, along with my interest in writing, was comics and animations. So I do a lot of that fan art and incorporating that into any sort of novels, because the genre of writing that I'm most interested in is fantasy. And the fantasy books that I've always ended up loving always had these really intricate drawings of maps and their kingdoms. And that's what visual communication design is. It's not just a focus on illustrations and graphics, because at the end of the day, you're trying to tell a story through the art that you're creating. And that's what I've always loved about books too, especially when the cover was really interesting. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but honestly, I feel like you have to do it a little bit. I do judge books, yeah.
We do.
Do.
We do, because I'm also a book publisher, and the cover is so important.
Exactly.
Because you want to capture the eye of the potential reader. You know, it's a competitive marketplace. And in the publishing business, you even talk about the real estate on the cover. And the spine is very important, what the spine looks like, what the back cover looks like, what the blurb, how inviting is the story. Does it speak to the reader of that kind of book that's so crucial?
And as a designer, Ren, we probably can't avoid this topic, but thinking of you as a designer and somebody who wants to do design work, how do you feel about artificial intelligence and using artificial intelligence in design? I mean, is it something that you're worried about? Are you excited about? Are you using these things or these tools? Or
I'm not the most fond of AI when it comes to design, especially because I feel like there's a lot of ethics that go into it that the vast majority of the public tends to overlook. Because AI is something that is a very, very easy, low barrier entry tool for someone to use as long as they know the right prompts to put into a search engine for AI. You can get like designs that will probably take an artist weeks to go through. I've seen people make fantasy book covers in AI in under 5 minutes, which would usually take actual artists like months. And these sort of designs, they get sold, they get used, they're popular, and it just takes the credit away from the artist, especially because AI takes from artists whose stuff is on the internet, and that credit is usually not given. I feel like it's a great tool for people when they want to give the artist a reference, when they want to tell the artist, hey, this is what I have in mind, can you implement this? But when ethics are overlooked in terms of design and artistry, at the end of the day, it just takes away from the humanness that exists in the final design product.
that's an interesting last point, because John, you and I were talking about the human aspect of not just design, but writing and other art. And I think someone else was talking about music and how the human experience goes into the music. Could you talk a little bit about how you use this human experience to go into your writing?
Yeah. I think Ren is right about the ethical aspects of AI, and they shouldn't be overlooked. In fact, they should be highlighted, and we need to find a way of making it ethical. And it's interesting that only today in Australia, where I come from, the government has announced they're putting together a group with business, academics, technical people, government people, focused on the ethics of AI. And one question they've asked is whether there should be a form of Hippocratic oath, like doctors have, of do no harm with the development of AI. And they're talking about the importance of having not just the technical people involved in AI, but people from the humanities who understand about ethics, philosophy, and so on, to make this much more acceptable in a new world. Because it is revolutionary, and it has great upside, but it also has potential downside, which you've talked about. Another aspect of it is this one about the human touch. And I'd be very interested, Ren, in a minute, for you to talk about the quality of the artworks that have been created, because I've only done it so far, I've only used it so far for writing. I've tried to have it write a poem for me, which is not the hardest piece of writing. I mean, my friends who are poets would say, that's appalling, and they would slap me in the face for saying that. But I gave it some parameters that I wanted a poem, and the poem that it created was what I would call very ordinary, very pedestrian. It lacked nuance, it lacked colour, it lacked feeling and emotion. I asked it to write a song, the lyrics for a song. And similarly, it was pretty terrible. My son is a songwriter and a musician, and I showed him the output, and he kind of laughed, and he said he'd tried to use it too. And at this stage, it's still not great. I asked it to write a novel for me. I gave it the bones of the story, and it wrote a lot, and it wouldn't even pass first base at a publishing house because it was so weak. But that will change over time. But right now, I feel that what AI doesn't do, and probably will never be able to do, is bring to the product that it is generating the lived experience of the human. So as a writer, what I bring to my stories, even if it's fiction, I write crime fiction and crime thrillers, I get to kill people, which I love doing on paper. There have been so many people I've met in my life who I think, oh, I wish you were dead. But, you know, and I get to kill them on paper, but I don't go to jail for it. So it's fantastic. But I bring to my writing all of my experience and my emotions, which all writers do and all artists do when they create a work. You say the power of that work isn't just the colour and the shapes, it's what emotion it draws for the person. And so I wonder whether AI will ever be able to do that. Maybe when they get to GPT 599, when they are going to start calling it AGI, where it's supposed to be equal to or better than humans, maybe that will happen. But by then, you know, I'll probably be dead. You know, I don't know. So I wouldn't mind throwing the question back to Ren about how do you see the quality of the AI-generated artworks? You know, are they as good?
I don't think so. I mean, on a surface level, they look really intricate, but I don't know if you'll notice, but when AI usually draws something, there's always something very odd about it. Like, for example, if they draw a portrait of two people, there'll be extra fingers, or a limb will be out of place, or else they'll be missing an eye. Usually they'll have like one part of their face covered because they don't achieve that perfection that an actual human artist would be able to deliver. And that's how you can usually tell whether something's been made through AI or not. And the art style also won't be consistent. That's another thing. Like, it can be the same engine, however, and you can put like the same prompt, just varying slightly, but they'll produce 5 entirely different styles of images. And there's no consistency. And that the humanness that I was speaking about, that you'd also touched on, that emotion, I feel like products that AI have created just lack that depth. They almost look cold. I think it's lacking a heart, for instance. And I find that really odd, even whether it's written work or drawn. It looks really odd and out of place, and I just don't see it ever gaining that human nature. And I feel like if it did, I would find it quite disturbing that some robot can experience the same emotions a human has experienced by living for so long that they can experience just by the right prompts and coding. So, yeah.
One thing that I'm curious that's kind of related to this, I think that you're both touching on, is how the artwork, or to have a really good book, or to have a really good painting or drawing or something, that you're also kind of dependent, or you need the reader's or the viewer's imagination to work. Like, as a writer, a lot of the story is taking place in the person who's reading the book's mind, you know. And I wonder if AI, at least the current state of the AI and the chat GPT 3 or 4 that we have now, maybe it's not capable of getting into that level yet. But do you think that that's very far off? I mean, do you think that it could be possible where the imagination and maybe curiosity can start to be peaked, or we can start to be have that, we're getting curious more from AI?
My answer to that would be anything is possible, but is it probable? I think it's unlikely in the near term, and I say that having listened to some really, really excellent podcasts like this one, but excellent podcasts by experts, some of the world's leading experts in AI. And they are saying that the human side of this that we're talking about is way, way off, and they're unsure we'll ever be able to do it. They're also saying they're very worried about the ethics, as Ren has raised, and wanting to make sure that it's taken into account and dealt with. And I think part of the worry is that so much of AI at the moment is in the hands of the mega companies that we know, who are driven by, understandably, a profit motive, And AI is a bit like the internet back in the early days, but the internet was not owned by anybody. So it developed freely. Then we got social media, which ended up being owned by only a few companies. And we've seen some wonderful good that's come out of that, and we've seen some horrible bad that's come out of that. And a very slow response by those in charge of it, the owners of it, to respond to fix the bad. They're doing it, but it's been very slow with a lot of pressure all around the world. And so I think that we can learn from those experiences and say that with AI, we need to have... I'm not a person who believes that regulation is the answer to everything. I kind of like free markets, but I really worry about monopolies. And monopolies are not good for the consumer ultimately. So I think we need to have a lot more discussion around this, and we may need some regulation around how AI develops. So should artists be paid when the AI is scraping their work, which it is doing today, and using it to create new artworks? Well, really, they're using Wren's intellectual property there. So, you know, I subscribe to GPT. Some of that money should go to Wren if they're using her artwork. Or if they're using, you know, my book, then some of that money should come to me. It'll be a bit like Spotify. The artist doesn't get very much, but at least it's something. You know.
That would be rather revolutionary, at least. I mean, some social media tries to do that, but not on any kind of scale.
No.
You know, and not for intellectual property, just because you're bringing people to Instagram or to Facebook or to YouTube or whatever. And if you have a big enough following, you're getting money for that. And people in social media have been arguing for a long time, well, you're making the money off of us, so you're making the money off of the numbers, but that business model isn't like that. Do you really think that OpenAI would, you know, go in the direction of consumers and users rather than corporate profit and stock markets?
Great question. We'll find out, but I think it will take a very strong movement of creators to persuade that to happen, backed by regulations and governments. We've seen that other large media organisations have managed, under pressure, to get the Facebooks and the Googles to pay them
pay money,
for the use of their scraping. But how many years did that take? And, you know, how much are they getting for it? But when we're talking about individual artists,
it's really difficult.
There's no union, there's no conglomerate to look after the artists. So we kind of need the public, I think, to be behind this.
Interesting, interesting.
I'm not really sure how long it would take because I don't really have that kind of hope in people because...
You don't have hope in people?
No, I don't think so because for getting AI on social media, we've seen that artists have had their work stolen by the general public even when like money wasn't involved. Like they'll use it for profile pictures, they'll upload it onto Pinterest, which is known for horribly taking work from artists and not crediting them. And when you bring in AI into the question, which is owned and backed up by actual conglomerates and capitalist-driven organizations, I just don't think they're going to consider them small man when there's so much money to make for the big man.
I mean, there are some benefits for those sites to use your artwork, provided they give you credit.
Exactly.
So it's not even the money. I mean, the money would be good, but if they credited the artworks...
That means a lot.
It means a lot, because then people can say, oh, I love that, and that was by Wren.
And then they
I'm
can
going to
find
go to
Wren.
Yeah,
Wren.
it's exposure.
You know, and I see this a lot with sculpture. My wife is a sculptor, and whenever I see a photograph of someone in the newspaper or magazine with a very beautiful sculpture, they talk about the sculpture. They never talk about the artist, but the photographer is named. So the person who took the photograph is named, but not the artist of the actual work that they're featuring to make their photograph terrific. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of improvement that is needed, I think, around the world in the acknowledgement of the artist's intellectual property.
And our behind-the-scenes producer is kind of staring at me, so to try to speed it up. So let's just have one sort of final question on the same topic, though. How do you think us as a university or as education going forward, Ren, you might have to think about the future of kids or grandkids or something like that. How do you think education can embrace this kind of technology to make it a better educational experience, but also a better learning experience? Because we don't want, I mean, we wouldn't want you to not have the same kind of learning experience and get that kind of depth, but you also need to go into the world ready to use the tools that are being used.
I feel like a great way that you can adopt that and develop it for the future is by teaching people how to use AI and teaching them the ethics. It has to be a conscious use of this tool, because I think people think differently. They can all be creative, but the way they'll use that creativity is obviously different, and therefore the way they'll think about that creativity is also different. So being able to use AI to communicate with other artists, communicate within artists themselves, is a great thing that is also very teachable, and doing that at a university or even like on a school level is totally possible, especially because as we go on to future generations, technology is just going to become more and more closely interrelated with our lives, and it's just going to keep going like that at a faster pace. So teaching students like, okay, this is the issue, this is the ethical issue, this is what will happen if you don't credit them, and speaking to them on a personal level, being like, you wouldn't like it if this happened to you, so this is what you can do instead. I feel like that's a great way to allow them to use this tool, which I do think is very, very helpful, especially like if you want to communicate with an artist, but you yourself don't have that skill. Using AI to bring to life your vision is much more helpful to the artist than if you told them, hey, I want a castle, like what kind of castle, where do you want the castle to be? This will just give them that extra step of visualization that will just help in communication at the end of the day.
I think there's one, it was a very good answer, Ren, but I think there's one thing that stood out to me in there was that you're kind of saying that we need to be focusing on using AI as a starting point rather than ending point.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like now a lot of people in society were saying that AI is the finish line.
Yeah.
Like you go there and you get the work and it's finished, but you're saying we need to go there at the beginning to generate something and then work with it. John, I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look,
about
I
that.
agree 100% with what Ren said. There's almost nothing more to say because she was so articulate. But this point about the beginning, I think, is absolutely right. It's going to be, and it is already, I think, a good first draft. So I can save a lot of time. As you were saying earlier, Ren, about it can do in a few minutes in terms of an artwork, something that might take an artist a month. But if you treat that as a first draft, you say, if I can learn at university or school how to instruct it to do what I want it to do, create a first draft for me that I can build off and add my human emotion to and my intellect, then I think it becomes a very powerful tool, and it will lead to so much more productivity in the world. That is a huge benefit for all of us. I can see that in writing novels, it could be a good, not necessarily draft of the novel, but a synopsis. It may help me come up with ideas that I hadn't thought about because they were outside of my frame of reference. And I go, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm going to put that in my story, or I won't put that in my story. So I think if we as universities teach our students how to use AI in a constructive, responsible way, they are going to be better off, society is going to be better off. And then also the university itself using AI for the benefit of students. We can use AI, and we're already doing this to some extent, and we are going to do it more at the University of Wollongong in Dubai, where we have some students who are struggling. We can identify that early, and we can be prompted to help them, you know, are you doing this or are you doing that? Can we help you with this? Because we will have access to the day with so much being online, we can kind of see who's struggling, who's not struggling. And so we can be a much better university. And that's an aim that we have.
Excellent. I mean, that's a great point to close it on. And I think that's definitely what we're here at the University of Wollongong in Dubai trying to do, and especially in the media program, but in all the programs, trying to embrace the AI and again, look at it as a starting point rather than the ending point. So thanks to you, John Green,
My
for
pleasure.
being with us today. And of course, Ren, it was great having you.
Thank you for having me.
Great.
Good luck, and you'll be graduating soon. We'll be here cheering for you.
And good luck with a very bright future,
Thank you so
because I
much.
can see you've got one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.